And so really, things started to shit hit the fan. Things started to hit the fan, crumble kind of down when that big inflection point was upon graduating from Harvard. And you had succeeded. You had done all the things to not make yourself feel different, to make yourself feel special. You had crossed off everything that you had achieved. And then you're there. And that's when you had like that big inflection point of like, crap. Now I've done all that I wanted to do. Now who am I, right? Like that was kind of the thought, the experience.
Totally. It was the most anticlimactic moment of my life, which is weird because I could see my parents so like beaming from the audience. I had kind of, that was something that was weighing on me for a long time is, my parents moved here when they were so young and moved away from family. And this is something I felt like I was doing for them. I think I caught myself like walking across the graduation ceremony, getting my diploma, and I was like, is this what it's supposed to be like? Like
you've mentioned three words to me
that
I hold to dearly as similarly like this chase of achievement, which is an amazing thing, but when you're doing it for the wrong reasons, right, you end up feeling unsatisfied, unbelonged, and unwhole. And I think there's so many of us when we're trying to find our purpose and we're trying to, sink into ourselves that we constantly feel this, but we don't like take it into account. We can't stop it because, we're driving towards that goal. And when you finally take the second to breathe and you really get in tune with yourself, which is I think what you did after graduation through getting more into yoga and meditation and like the spiritual sides of you, you're like, wait a minute, my alignment is not here right now.
I completely, I want to take a step back and say that the achievement or getting there and all of those things and the experiences and the friends I made there were great. But it was to understand that achieving and constantly building on top of that is not necessarily going to make me happy.
Yeah.
And yoga is something I'd found even earlier, probably in my Johns Hopkins days. And you're right in that I think after this sort of last tick mark of things that I've done, I was like, what have I done the last 15 years in terms of developing myself as a person that has still left me so unwhole, like you mentioned, at the end of sort of this big inflection point. And yeah, so that's what I've been focusing on for the last 2.5 years that I've lived here in California.
And you also got into some good rounds of therapy, which I hope to profess, and I will profess through the book and in the podcast, is that therapy can be driven by so many different avenues, right? Whether you have a therapist or a community of people, when you're going through things that you need to work out in your head, having that person, just to help you see blind spots, which I think your therapist and your guys' journey has been an awesome opportunity for you.
Completely. Yeah. I think, so this is another kind of soft subject that, especially in Asian cultures, it's not necessarily seen as going to therapy is not seen as something positive too. And, my family has been so open to it. And I think what's interesting is that it's kind of a two-prong approach, right? For all high achievers, we all kind of freak out when we don't know what's next. So that's one aspect that I've been kind of talking through with my therapist about. And the other aspect is this identity piece. It's who am I without the different, diplomas? Who am I without necessarily this shadow of wanting to, unfortunately, be more white all the time or do the things that kind of initially were survival mechanisms as a kid, but I don't need those anymore. Yes, it maybe helped me not be embarrassed and kind of go through life, but I don't need those mechanisms of sort of a cover. And I've been slowly digging into my roots the last couple of years, but I think I'm really sinking into it now. That away from school, away from trying to constantly achieve. But, even now we work together and sometimes it comes up and you're thinking about the next thing. And sometimes it's just important to slow down and do the work. The work of like, why are you here today? And what are the things that have gotten you here? And do you still need those things? Because you don't.
I think, we've talked about this. I think there's a layer, like there's two things that I want to bring out. I think there's a layer in vulnerability to get to that spot for you to be openly and willingly say, I need help. Like there's spirits moving inside of me right now that are causing destruction mentally, physically, all those kind of things. And then, like you said, also too, that vulnerability of like actually going out and seeking help and doing the work. Like growth journeys, change journeys, they are hard, and they like force you to see things sometimes that you don't really want to see.